We were hiding out in the bathroom trying to freshen up. The club's dance floor had left us completely sweaty, and honestly, it was already way past my bedtime. I splashed cool water onto my face, careful not to mess up the fake eyelashes Iggy had painstakingly applied for me earlier. I never wore makeup because it always caused painful bumps and breakouts on my skin, and though Iggy hadn't been thrilled when I denied her full makeover, she'd compromised on the lashes during the transport ride over. Say what you want, but that girl had serious talent when it came to beauty. The moment we stepped out of the restroom, a wall of silver intercepted us. 5 massive Netheri males dressed in crisp, all-black military uniforms stood waiting right outside the door. Well, shit, I thought, my stomach tightening. He sent his goons for us. One of them stepped forward, completely eclipsing the hallway light as he looked down at me. Up close, past the sheer breadth of his massive chest, I noticed he had strikingly pretty silver eyes. His long, elegant, elfish ears twitched slightly in the quiet corridor.
"Come with us,"
he stated, his voice clipping with military authority. Iggy, ever the outgoing free spirit, didn't even flinch. "We just had to freshen up," she said, flashing a bright, dazzling smile at the guard. I rolled my eyes internally. My legs felt like lead and absolutely did not want to move, but Iggy hooked her arm firmly through mine, practically dragging me along. I took a deep breath, let it out slowly, and allowed her to pull me forward. The crowded club parted like the Red Sea as we walked past. 2 massive silver soldiers led the way in front of us, while the other 3 flanked tightly behind us, forming a high-security escort. Walking among them, I felt like a literal shrimp. Every single alien in the room, including Iggy, stood at 6 feet or taller, while 5'2" me barely made it past Iggy's waistline. I could already feel the judging stares, and I knew I was probably the joke of the evening to them. Look at the vulnerable, tiny human. It was no secret that a lot of alien species didn't want humans integrated into their star systems. They viewed us as unevolved, primitive creatures hell-bent on destruction, beings who couldn't get over their own vanity or a belief system they considered completely outdated. Half the aliens out here openly wondered why humans still clung to ancient religions and false gods. Worse than the insults, humans also had to deal with the terrifying reality of the galactic slave trade. Human females were considered highly valuable commodities because we were biologically capable of procreating with many of these alien species. They didn't want us to build families with them, of course. They just wanted us as exotic objects. The only reason I hadn't been snatched up yet was my background as a government-badged medical caretaker. Those credentials had successfully gotten me out of a lot of trouble with predatory beings who had tried to take me on a couple of occasions. I had been dealing with a stalker of my own. Another reason, I had not wanted to go out. But as I walked up those stairs, my mind didn't go to the politicians. It went straight to one specific patient under my care, the silver male Iggy had mentioned earlier. I had sworn off men a long time ago. My path was riddled with PTSD from my kid's father, and every man I'd tried to hook up with after him had turned out to be an absolute disaster. My ultimate breaking point was a guy who accidentally butt-dialed me while he was actively cheating with another woman. That was it for me. I'd effectively turned into a nun, minus the actual religion. I had despised men, turning extremely prejudiced toward them. They really had no desire to know who I really was, and I was no longer that woman who desired one-night stands or a man's attention anymore. I wanted real love, the kind that came with time, understanding, and patience. The kind of love that would live for you, a meaningful, powerful bond. And I would accept nothing less because I knew I was that loyal person, and I deserved the same. When Pops came along, I had to admit he was a fine older male, but the more I got to know him, he became different, becoming more of a father figure to me, an older veteran with one leg, and he'd once told me he lost it while saving a young male's life. He had told me so many stories about his people, the Netheri, and I wondered if this Netheri elite unit knew I had connections to him. Was I going to have to lie straight to a commander's face to keep an old war veteran safe? Because I would. The entire atmosphere shifted the second we stepped into the VIP lounge. The ambient noise of the club died out, replaced by an oppressive, heavy air. I looked completely out of place in my simple green vintage dress, especially standing next to Iggy and her gorgeous group. It didn't take long before I caught the sound of snickering and quiet laughing from the booths. Eyes glared in my direction, and I could read the expressions on their faces clear as day. Disgust, mockery, condescension. I hated that I gave everything away with my facial expressions, especially when something thoroughly disgusted me, but I couldn't help it. As if drawn to my presence, our eyes met. It was like time stopped. The music went silent as he watched me get closer. He was standing by a group of high-ranking military officers who looked similar to him. Beautiful women clad in glittering fabrics clung to their sides. The older officers were smoking thick galactic cigars, and a few of them actually possessed silver beards, which was a feature I hadn't seen before. Standing right next to the commander was a breathtaking silver-haired woman. Her dress hugged every single engineered curve of her body, and her arm was possessively wrapped around his, snapping me back to reality. I rolled my eyes, trying to force my face into a blank mask. Glancing up at Iggy, I muttered, "So, why exactly are we here?" The soldier with the silver eyes shot an annoyed look back at me, clearly unaccustomed to a human speaking out of turn. Iggy instantly tugged my hand down, giving me a sharp, shut-the-hell-up squeeze. We finally halted right in front of the commander. The silver-eyed guard stepped forward and bowed formally.
Commander, the ladies you requested are here,
he announced. The silver-haired woman on the commander's arm didn't waste a single second. Her eyes locked onto me, her nostrils flaring with immediate disdain. "Why is a filthy human here on this planet?" she sneered, her voice dripping with venom. "How are you even still alive?" I let out a sharp, amused chuff. "Well, I guess I'm incredibly resilient," I said, a faint smirk tugging at my lips. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a sudden brief smirk cross the commander's face before his expression snapped back into standard, hyper-disciplined military control. I adjusted my posture, gesturing to the generals. "I also happen to have a fancy government badge just like you guys, though it seems like your primary job description is just to blow the common—" Before the words could fully leave my mouth, Iggy violently slapped her hand over my mouth. She let out a high-pitched, incredibly nervous laugh, sweating bullets. "Apologies, Commander Onyx. She's just tired. We are incredibly honored to be here." I wrenched her hand off my mouth, still staring dead at the silver woman. I smiled tightly. I didn't owe this commander or his haughty companion a single ounce of my respect, until they showed me some first. Iggy quickly rushed to fill the silence before I could start an interstellar war. "My name is Iggy, and this is Vivi, our human friend and my co-worker. I work at Thalasis Harmony Care Nursing Facility alongside Vivi." I offered a stiff, incredibly awkward little wave and a blank stare. Onyx stood at a massive 8 feet, looking entirely intense and profoundly intimidating. Those glowing crimson-red eyes bored straight down into my soul, assessing me like a target. Iggy finished introducing the rest of the girls, and a heavy, suffocating silence settled over the lounge as we waited for his response. He was remarkably observant and surprisingly patient. I noticed that despite the silver woman's best efforts to practically climb up his torso, his hands remained loosely at his sides, never once wrapping around her or returning the embrace. "Relax, girl," I thought, internally giggling at her desperation. "I don't want your man." Onyx finally spoke, and holy hell, his voice was a deep, resonant rumble that practically vibrated through my chest.
I have never met a human before.
I kept my expression completely locked, playing it cool while a massive wave of relief washed over me. I realized right then that he wasn't here for information on the Nitheri mail I took care of. How would he have even known? My brain jumping to conclusions. Before I could reply to him, the silver female cut in, her voice shrill as she squeezed his arm tighter. "I have met plenty of them, Onyx. They are all disgusting, disgraceful, and greedy beings." I rolled my eyes so hard I looked away from the commander. Man, this woman was grating on my last nerve. "Well, you're not entirely wrong," I said, turning my gaze back to her. "Humans can absolutely be disgusting. Humans can be disgraceful. And yes, we are known to be greedy when it comes to getting what we want. But I've worked with and met so many different people and species across this sector that your little statement is just way too vague, sweetheart." I stepped a fraction closer, crossing my arms. "Honestly, Your complete lack of respect and basic empathy makes you the exact same thing you claim to hate about humans. I raised my hands, dropping them into flat quotation marks. Disgusting. A heavy silence dropped like an anvil. The surrounding guards shifted, but Onyx merely watched me, an unreadable look of profound entertainment in his red eyes. I felt like a rare insect he was preparing to study behind a glass box. Suddenly, Onyx took a slow step forward. The sheer physical authority radiating off his massive frame commanded instant order, causing the other women to instinctively take a step back. The silver woman tried desperately to hold onto his arm as he moved, and the brief flash of pure unadulterated annoyance that crossed his sharp jawline was absolutely priceless.
You all may leave,
Onyx rumbled softly. The older generals and their companions understood the command instantly. They bowed respectfully and immediately cleared out of the lounge. The silver woman, however, stood there completely oblivious, clearly assuming the order didn't apply to royalty like her. She dropped her hands onto her hips, huffing loudly. It's about time you made some sense, Onyx. I can't believe you would even entertain this human or these lowlives. She's a real charmer, Iggy murmured under her breath to me. Onyx slowly turned his full attention to the silver female. He walked up to her, his massive hands clasped disciplined behind his back. He hovered over her intimidatingly, and despite her tall frame, he towered over her so completely she visibly cringed backward.
I was speaking to you,
Onyx rumbled, his voice dropping to a dangerous frequency. He stood straight, cutting his eyes toward her remaining attendants. The message was received loud and clear. Her people practically scurried out of the room in a frantic panic. Annoyed and thoroughly humiliated, the silver woman chuffed, aggressively tossing her long hair back, nearly striking Onyx in the face with the strands before storming out. The moment her and her group walked out, the silence returned. Onyx didn't move right away. He simply pivoted on his heel, turning his immense, dominating presence fully toward me. Every single survival instinct wired into my human biology began screaming at me to step back, turn around, and run. But I forced my knees to lock. His guards still quietly surrounded the perimeter of the room as he adjusted his posture, drawing himself up to his full, unyielding height. The sheer breadth of his shoulders completely blotted out the light behind him. Standing entirely straight, this Commander Onyx was too tall for me, and my neck hated this angle. He hovered over me for several long, agonizing seconds, letting the massive, suffocating pressure of his presence fill the space between us before his glowing crimson gaze focused on my every nervous movement. It was incredibly awkward. Due to the staggering height difference, his military belt buckle was positioned almost directly at my eye level. My gaze lingered there for a split second too long, and an unbidden stray thought suddenly slipped through my mind. Holy hell, if he's this huge up here, just how massive is he down there? A sudden furious heat flushed straight up my neck and into my cheeks. Internally cringing at my own filthy brain, I quickly tried to lean back and mentally merge myself into Iggy's side to put some actual distance between us.
Are all you humans this small?
He finally asked. His voice was quiet, his eyes tracking the sudden flush on my skin and the tight line of my posture. I let out a nervous chuckle, desperate to mask the static humming through my veins. Well, compared to an 8 or 9 foot alien warrior? Yes. The tallest humans back home usually only grow to be around 6 feet tall, and very few grow to be 8 feet tall. He nodded his massive head, a slow, deliberate motion, allowing the information to settle. Silence stretched between us once more. He didn't rush. He simply tilted his head a fraction, his long, pointed, elfish ears twitching slightly in the quiet air.
May I steal some of your time?
I raised an eyebrow, letting my natural conversational defense mechanisms kick right in to hide my nerves. Only if you buy me a drink and get me some food first. Onyx held my gaze. Another heavy, static-filled silence pooled in the room, highlighting the absolute, sarcastic audacity of my demand. A baseline human was bargaining with an elite military assassin. A slow beat passed, then another, before a low rumble vibrated behind his chest.
Are all humans this demanding?
No, only me, and you caught me as I was about to leave. He stared down at me for a split second longer. Then, moving with rigid military discipline, he raised a single silver hand. The gesture was absolute law. Across the lounge, an alien server instantly broke formation, swaying her way over to our position in a calm and confident hurry.
Bring drinks and food to the table,
he rumbled flatly. The woman bowed deeply and rushed off. I frowned slightly, wondering how he knew exactly what to order, before he turned his massive frame back toward the plush seating area. He extended a hand toward the leather cushions, letting the quiet pause act as an unspoken invitation.
Will you sit with me?
I glanced around, desperately checking for Iggy, but my best friend was already across the lounge, deep in conversation with a handsome young male guard and clearly enjoying herself. Good for her, I thought, realizing the harsh truth. I was entirely on my own here. Clearing my throat, I looked back up at the commander, forcing a small, controlled smile. Sure, why not? Onyx stepped in, extending his massive arm to guide me toward the plush couch. The moment his silver skin pressed gently against my lower back, everything changed. It wasn't a violent jolt or a painful shock. Instead, a sudden, powerful surge of pure energy radiated straight through the vintage fabric of my dress. It felt like an instantaneous connection, a massive, undulating wave of raw heat that shot up my spine and sent a heavy shiver rippling down my entire body. Goosebumps erupted violently along my arms. I shimmied slightly, trying to pull away and process the intense, strange electricity of his touch. He stopped instantly, his crimson eyes narrowed into sharp slits, his gaze tracking my physiological reaction. He had clearly felt it, too. Looking back up at his massive face, I offered a breathless, highly nervous giggle. You shocked me. This male made my nerves absolute static. It had been a long time since I'd even entertained the thought of a man, let alone a high-ranking alien commander. The only silver male I interacted with was a father figure back at my job. He had become my family along with Iggy on this harsh planet. As Onyx guided me onto the deep leather cushions, the space between us felt incredibly small. I sat near him, trying to process his sheer size, when I squinted my eyes, noticing something bizarre happening to his face. A deep, ink-like black coloration was slowly forming around his crimson irises, bleeding across his silver sclera. I finally broke the heavy silence. Hey, the outside of your eyes are turning pitch black. Are you okay? Should I be worried? What does that mean? The silence that stretched between us grew longer and heavier than I was comfortable with. Onyx continued to watch me with those unsettling, intense eyes, his sharp facial features completely unreadable. The weight of his stare was suffocating. Then, almost absently, his gaze drifted past my shoulder.
Tharek.
The massive silver guard standing a few paces behind us immediately broke formation and stepped forward, bowing. Without taking his red eyes off my face, Onyx spoke in a low, beautiful Netheri dialect that made my stomach drop into a frozen abyss.
Sharvan Irka, look at my eyes.
The guard frowned ever so slightly, stepping closer to study his commander's face. His pointed ears twitched as he analyzed the physical shift. His expression remained tightly disciplined, but I caught the briefest, undeniable flicker of surprise in his posture.
Nereth,
Theric whispered, his voice dropping into a cautious, reverent register.
Irka vel Sharlan. Commander, your sclera have become black.
Onyx's brow barely moved.
Kel, how long? I do not know,
The guard replied, lowering his head respectfully.
I only noticed it now.
A profound, echoing silence followed. Onyx finally broke eye contact with me, turning his head toward the polished reflection of a dark crystal pillar decorating the VIP lounge. His own striking reflection stared back at him. His crimson irises remained bright, but the whites of his eyes, which were actually a light silver to begin with, had turned entirely ink pitch black. Neither of them spoke for several agonizing seconds. Finally, the guard broke the quiet, his voice almost breathless.
Nereth.
Theric whispered, his voice dropping into a cautious, reverent register.
Sarin Kale is Irshara Vel. Commander, the first bond has awakened.
My breath caught completely in my throat. The first bond? I knew exactly what that meant. I was no fool when it came to bonds, and I had read a lot of monster/alien romance to understand, but my mind scrambled frantically trying to process the implications. Who the hell was he bonding to? It couldn't be me. No, that was biologically impossible. But as I watched them, the reality of the situation hit me with a terrifying force. Onyx wasn't just any high-ranking official. He was an elite royal commander, and hearing him speak fluently with his guard in their native tongue made my stomach twist into a violent knot. I desperately tried to keep my expression blank, but the words Tharic spoke kept repeating in my mind. The first bond has awakened? I had to play dumb. I couldn't let him know I understood a single word of the Nithiri language. If an elite royal commander realized a human civilian could translate his high-level tactical conversations, his military suspicion would spike immediately. He would want to know how and why I knew his tongue, putting a massive target on my back and eventually risking the secret cover I was desperately protecting for Pops. I had to keep my mouth entirely shut. I did not wear my translator glasses, and human language was known to all beings. It was surprising. I had no desire to hear these filthy males at the club. Onyx raised a single hand, dismissing his guard.
Tharic.
The soldier bowed deeply and stepped back into the security flank. I couldn't help but notice the wicked, uniquely styled blades resting at their hips, weapons designed for absolute lethality.
You keep staring at him.
Onyx's deep voice rumbled beside me, cutting through my mounting panic.
You're going to make me jealous.
I snapped my head back to face him, forcing a dry, nervous chuckle. Me? Make you jealous? No way. You're way too handsome, Commander. I'm sure you can have any woman in this room.
What about you?
He asked, his deep voice dropping as he leaned in even closer. Okay, he had some game. I could feel the intense, radiant body heat rolling off his massive frame, and his deep, gravelly voice sent a strange vibration straight through my chest. I couldn't stop staring directly at the black bleeding into his eyes, and he noticed immediately.
You keep staring at my eyes like that, and you're going to make me feel self-conscious.
He murmured. I snorted, instantly embarrassed as I covered my face, nervously chuckling. There was no way a male like him could ever be self-conscious. Onyx leaned in slowly, his pointed ear hovering just inches from my face.
I will tell you, but only if you agree to come back to my residence.
I sat up in surprise, my eyebrows shooting up. I do not do one-night stands as he hovered over me, surprised that he even had a place out here. Kadron told me the Nithiri trusted none, and would stay in their vessels before staying on a hostile planet like 0851. You have a place on this planet?
I have a residence on every primary planet.
Onyx stated smoothly.
Except for Earth. Though, I am currently preparing to acquire a house on your home world as well.
I let out a breathless laugh, trying to keep the mood light while my brain calculated the danger. So, what you're saying is, you just need a local human tour guide? He launched a low, dangerous laugh, and the sudden display of his razor-sharp, piranha-like predatory teeth made me instantly reconsider the safety of this entire conversation. He was terrifyingly observant, tracking the exact second my pupils dilated.
You think I'm going to eat you now, Vivi?
He murmured, a dangerous smirk playing on his lips. I raised an eyebrow, forcing myself to match his intensity. You might. Just as the words left my mouth, a couple of new alien servants approached our table, silently setting down heavy silver platters of food. The rich, exotic aroma hit me instantly, making my empty stomach twist. Looking at the spread, I frowned, trying to find my footing. What if I had refused your invitation? Onyx leaned in, his heavy, dominant presence completely enveloping my personal space. He let out a dark, deep rumble, a massive smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth.
Then I would have simply been forced to use my fancy government badge,
he whispered. Right against the shell of my ear, I blinked, a sudden quiet laugh escaping me despite the mounting tension. Oh, he was slick. The giant had actually been paying attention to my little blowout with that arrogant silver woman earlier, taking my exact words and throwing them right back in my face. Before I could even formulate a comeback, his warm breath fanned directly across my skin. An instant electric chill rushed straight down my neck and plunged down my spine, making every nerve in my body lock up tight. It took everything I had to suppress the shiver running through me from his sudden closeness. I leaned back slightly, desperate to put some space between us. My eyes scanned the lower floor of the club, searching for any sign of safety. Down below, the multi-level venue was absolute chaos. The lower sector dance floor was an ocean of flashing synth lights, surrounded by elevated platforms where dancers moved around high-tech stripper poles. But up here in the VIP tier, shielded behind sound-dampening glass, Iggy was nowhere to be found. Did this bitch seriously leave me here? I thought, panic beginning to set in. Then, my heart plummeted straight into my shoes. Standing across the VIP lounge, surrounded by a heavy security detail, was the exact alien male who had been relentlessly stalking me ever since I got on this planet. Merrick. A wave of pure, cold panic rushed through my veins. Without even thinking, my hand shot out and gripped Onyx's knee, squeezing his solid leg tight as my entire body went dead rigid. Merrick caught my gaze from across the room and flashed a sickening, confident smirk. He was a notorious blue-skinned alien who ran a massive operation on this rock. All my senses went into absolute overload. The pungent smell of the food, my stalker staring a hole through me from across the tier, and Onyx's massive 8-foot frame hovering right over me, watching my every micro-movement. I picked up a stray drink from the table and downed it in one hard gulp. A huge mistake, nearly spitting out the drink all over Onyx, internally cringing and instantly feeling the effect of the drink. What the hell was in that?
That was my drink, Vivi. It is an exclusive liquor made on our homeworld.
Coughing, he started rubbing my back, his large hands feeling way too nice.
Try to breathe.
That's stronger than moonshine. Looking up at the commander, my voice trembled ever so slightly. I think I should go. My eyes trailing back to Merrick as he lifted his glasses to toast me. I started to pull my hand away from his knee, but Onyx moved with a blinding superhuman speed that left me zero time to react. His massive silver hand came down, lightly but unyieldingly, trapping my fingers against his leg.
Is it the blue male who has been staring at you?
His deep, elegantly smooth voice rumbled, making me jump. I stared up at him in absolute shock. How did you know? Your back is literally turned to him. Onyx's black-rimmed eyes flashed a deep, menacing crimson red.
Eat, and then we will leave.
I nodded tightly. I scanned the platters, but I didn't recognize a single dish. I don't know what any of this is. Onyx smiled, this time keeping his deadly teeth hidden. Without asking for permission, he expertly lifted a tender piece of alien food with his chopsticks. I frowned, my healthcare reflexes making me defensive. What are you doing? He didn't answer. Instead, he smoothly guided the chopsticks forward, holding the food right against my lips. I blinked, looking from the food to his intense face and back again. Are you seriously feeding me right now? His expression remained carved from stone.
You stated you were hungry.
I know, but I have perfectly functional hands.
I am aware.
I hesitated for a split second, looking into those dark, intense eyes. The exhaustion from the midnight shift and the alcohol were winning the battle, and his massive form felt strangely protective against the threat across the room. Letting out a quiet sigh, I figured when in Rome. I opened my mouth and leaned forward just enough for him to place the food onto my tongue with surprising, meticulous care. The meat was covered in a rich, dark sauce and literally melted on my tongue. It was so incredibly good, a soft moan escaped the back of my throat. The moment the sound left my lips, a deep, radiating primal growl vibrated out of Onyx's chest. Wow, I mumbled, chewing. That is delicious.
We harvest several types of unique sea creatures that inhabit the diverse oceans of the outer systems.
Onyx murmured, his eyes locked entirely on my mouth.
Though so far, since your world opened its portals, Our military's favorite delicacies are sourced from Earth.
I raised an eyebrow. Well, as long as your military doesn't go killing off any of our endangered sea creatures, I don't have a problem with you guys eating a couple of fish. He let out a low, genuine chuckle.
I will keep that tactical parameter in mind, Vivi.
He seemed to thoroughly enjoy the act of feeding me, carefully lifting bite after bite until I finally put my hands up, signaling that my stomach was officially full. A heavy, uncontrollable yawn overtook me. The sheer adrenaline of the night, combined with the liquor, finally broke my system. I was ready to pass out cold. My hand was still anchored tightly to Onyx's knee when the shadows shifted behind us. Onyx didn't turn his head. He didn't have to. His apex military instincts picked up the approach instantly, his crimson irises shifting toward the extreme corners of his dark sclera, as if his eyes could literally move to the back of his head. Across the lounge, Theric and the rest of Onyx's commandos immediately moved, stepping in like a solid wall of silver armor to block two men from advancing any further into our private tier. Nobody was going to just bypass a royal commander's elite security detail without permission. The lead alien, a horned face mogul dripping in expensive high-tier silks, instantly put his hands up in a placating gesture, bowing respectfully toward Onyx past the guards. Walking right beside him was Merrick, his dark blue arms crossed, his eyes fixed dead on me.
Commander, forgive the intrusion,
The slick alien announced smoothly, keeping his distance behind the guards.
I am the owner of this establishment. I am here to request a brief word with you and your lovely companion.
Onyx gave a short, subtle tilt of his head, giving his soldiers the silent signal to let them speak. The owner stepped forward, his eyes scanning our table before locking onto me with pure corporate greed.
Our security feeds captured this magnificent creature's movements down on the dance floor earlier.
He gestured expansively down toward the flashing lower tiers.
A rare, exotic human female who moves with such rhythm. You would bring in millions of credits. I want to offer you an exclusive entertainment contract tonight, sweetheart. Name your price.
I felt my fingers squeeze tighter against Onyx's solid leg. Beside the owner, Merrick took a slow, deliberate step closer. His cruel, calculating smirk widened as his dark eyes locked onto mine in a suffocating stare. He didn't say a single word, but the wave of malicious delight rolling off him made my skin crawl. He loved the fact that I despised him. My fiery attitude and the blatant disgust written all over my face didn't deter him. It turned him on. He got a massive predatory thrill out of my hatred, and he clearly viewed me as a prize he intended to win. Forcing my voice to remain clinical and cool despite the panic hammering in my chest, I looked the club owner dead in the eye. Thank you for the offer, but I politely decline. I already hold a legal contract and I'm strictly a medical caretaker. Merrick's smirk only deepened, a dark, quiet chuckle vibrating in his throat, as if my government badge was nothing more than a temporary inconvenience. The confrontation ended the second Onyx stood up. His massive 8-foot frame completely cut off the owner's view of me, his physical authority dropping over the tier like a visual blackout. The black bleeding into his sclera looked terrifyingly sharp under the VIP lights.
The lady gave her answer,
Onyx rumbled, his voice dropping to a low, lethal frequency that made the club owner instantly blanch. Onyx turned his head a fraction, his crimson irises burning directly into Merrick.
Gentlemen, if you would excuse us, we will be leaving.
Onyx didn't give them a chance to reply, nor did he give me a chance to go hunting for Iggy through the sprawling crowd. Taking absolute command of the moment, he stepped in, his massive silver arms sliding effortlessly beneath my frame to scoop my body right up against his broad chest, as if I weighed nothing at all. Under any other circumstances, I would have fought him tooth and nail. My fiery pride was screaming at me not to let any male handle me like a helpless damsel in distress. I would have squirmed, shoved my hands against his chest, and demanded he put my feet back on the floor. But right now, surrounded by my stalker, the greedy club owner, and an entire room of judging eyes, I just desperately wanted out. So, I swallowed my stubborn pride and allowed it. The sheer human itis A total system crash from the adrenaline, the dark liquor, and the exhausting standoff slammed into me the second my head hit his shoulder. My body gave up the fight, my eyes growing too heavy to keep open. As he strode out of the VIP sector, bypassing the staring crowds and moving down the quiet, private exit corridors, a deep, rhythmic vibration started within his massive chest, a low, resonant Netheri purr that made my body go limp in his embrace. With the heat of his body, the vibration hummed directly through my skin, turning my racing thoughts completely silent. My memory fractured into hazy pieces. I remember the cool, crisp night air hitting my face as the club doors hissed shut behind us. I remember the soft, expensive leather of a transport vehicle's seat as he carefully laid me down inside. And then, wrapped in the protective shadow of his presence, the darkness swallowed me whole as I passed out cold.